The Costa del Sol, Spain. For thousands of expats, it's a sun-drenched coastline that promises a paradise. But on New Year's Day 2008, that promise was completely shattered. A 15-year-old Irish girl, Amy Fitzpatrick, stepped out into the Spanish night for what should have been a 10-minute walk home and simply vanished. The story that first emerged was a tragic mystery. But the truth as it slowly unspooled was something far, far darker. How does a teenager just disappear from a familiar path, only minutes from her own front door? It's the question that has tormented investigators and the public for well over a decade. The search for Amy would end up uncovering a deeply troubled home life, a family fractured by secrets, and a shocking act of violence that proved the real danger wasn't on some unlit path. It was inside the very home Amy was walking towards. This isn't just the story of a missing girl. It's the story of a family that holds the key to the truth, a truth that's been buried for years under the Spanish sun. To even begin to understand what happened on that New Year's night, you have to understand Amy Fitzpatrick. Born in Dublin, Ireland, Amy was, by all accounts, a pretty typical teenager. She was bubbly, maybe a little rebellious, and deeply attached to her friends and family back home. But in 2004, her mother, Audrey Fitzpatrick, and her partner, Dave Mahon, made a decision that would change all of their lives forever. They moved Amy and her older brother, Dean, to Spain's Costa del Sol to chase a new life. They were pursuing a dream of sun and prosperity. Mahon worked in property, and for a while it seemed like they had it all. He would later claim they were millionaires, with a portfolio of properties and bars. But for Amy, this new life felt less like paradise and more like a cage. She was a fish out of water struggling to fit in. She wasn't fluent in Spanish and had reportedly been out of school for over a year before she disappeared. Her entire world was confined to the small expat community around Mijas Costa. Friends and family say Amy was deeply unhappy in Spain. She desperately missed her father, Christopher, and her grandmother back in Dublin. Her lifeline was her phone calls and texts to Ireland, and the hope that she would be able to go back soon. That hope was especially strong in the weeks leading up to her disappearance. A Christmas trip home to see her dad was all planned out, a beacon of light for a homesick kid. But then, at the last minute, the trip was cancelled. Her mother, Audrey, later explained it was because Amy's brother, Dean, had gotten into some trouble, a fact she'd kept quiet at the time. For Amy, the disappointment was absolutely crushing. People who knew the family back then have painted a desperate picture of Amy's final months. They say her life was going off the rails and that she would often crash with friends for weeks at a time, bouncing from house to house just to avoid going home. She'd wear clothes borrowed from friends, only popping back to her own place for a day or two before leaving again. This wasn't a happy teen enjoying the sun. This was a deeply unsettled girl looking for refuge anywhere she could find it. She dreamed of one thing: going home to Ireland. It was a dream she would never realize. It's New Year's Eve, 2007. The Costa del Sol is buzzing with parties and fireworks. For Amy, the evening was spent doing something completely normal. She was at the home of her best friend Ashley Rose, babysitting Ashley's younger brother. The two girls were inseparable, true partners in crime as they navigated being teenage expats. The night passed easily. They chatted, watched TV, and right at midnight, Amy used the Rose family's landline to call her mom and wish her a happy new year. The next day, January 1st, 2008, was quiet. Amy spent the day with Ashley. As evening rolled in around 10 p.m., it was time for Amy to head home. She said her goodbyes. The walk from Ashley's house to her own was short, a route she'd taken countless times, no more than 10 or 15 minutes. Ashley watched her friend walk off into the night carrying a small bag and her treasured pink Nokia phone. Amy called it her Irish phone, and even when it had no credit, she used it for photos and music. That was the last time anyone, aside from the person responsible for what happened next, ever saw Amy Fitzpatrick alive. Those 10 minutes stretched into an hour and then bled into the night. Amy never made it home. The path she walked was a notoriously dark dirt track that cut between the residential areas. In the days that followed, that dark path became the focus. But it quickly became clear that the darkness surrounding Amy's case was a lot more complicated than a poorly lit road. The first strange detail was the timing of the police report. Amy didn't come home on the night of January 1st, but her mother Audrey didn't report her missing until January 3rd. Audrey has always said that she just assumed Amy was staying with Ashley or another friend, which, given Amy's reluctance to be at home, was apparently a common thing. But as the hours turned into days, panic set in. When Audrey finally called the Rose family and realized Amy wasn't there, the awful reality hit them. Amy was gone. The 10-minute walk had somehow just swallowed her whole. Once the alarm was finally raised, the Spanish Guardia Civil launched a massive search. Hundreds of officers and volunteers fanned out across the area. Helicopters with thermal imaging cameras scanned from above, while sniffer dogs worked the scrubland around the path Amy was supposed to have taken. On the surface, it looked like a robust investigation, but beneath the surface, cracks were already starting to show. One of the biggest mysteries from the very beginning was Amy's phone. Her best friend Ashley Rose was adamant that Amy had her pink Nokia with her when she left. But Amy Fitzpatrick insisted that Amy did not have the phone and that it was still at their house. This one detail is a cornerstone of the case. If Amy had the phone, what happened to it? If she didn't, why would her best friend be so sure that she did? The mystery only got deeper when Audrey was later seen in a TV interview holding what looked like that exact same distinctive pink phone, a moment that has fueled endless speculation. Then, 7 months later, in August 2008, a very strange burglary took place. The target wasn't just any home. It was the office of the family's lawyer Juan José de la Fuente Tixido. The thieves broke in but ignored expensive electronics and valuables. Instead, they took a laptop that was being used in the search for Amy and confidential police reports about her disappearance. The lawyer was convinced the break-in was directly related to the case, saying, "It makes no sense that they took documents which financially are worthless and left behind all my expensive valuables. It didn't feel like a random robbery. It felt like a calculated move to control the evidence." As the years dragged on, the family's frustration with the official investigation grew. They felt that critical leads weren't being chased down and that the Spanish authorities had let the case go cold way too quickly. Amy's aunt, Christine Kenny, has repeatedly called for a fresh set of eyes, stating there were too many coincidences, things that just didn't fit. The family pushed for the case to be upgraded from a missing person inquiry to a murder investigation, but that plea has so far been ignored. The official search stalled, but the darkness brewing inside Amy's own family was about to erupt in the most horrific way imaginable. To understand the real dark truth at the heart of this case, you have to leave the sunny coast of Spain and go back to Dublin 5 years after Amy disappeared. The tensions that simmered in Amy's home life hadn't gone away, they had festered. The family, already broken by Amy's disappearance, was about to be completely destroyed from the inside out. The two central figures are Amy's mother, Audrey, and her partner, Dave Mahon. In the years after Amy went missing, their relationship with Amy's brother Dean became more and more volatile. Dean was only 17 when his sister vanished and had moved back to Dublin soon after. His relationship with his stepfather was always described as rocky, and on May 26, 2013, it hit a fatal breaking point. The argument that ended Dean's life started over something ridiculous, a water bottle that Dean took off Mahon's bike, apparently just to annoy him. But this petty squabble spiraled. Mahon, who had been drinking, talked Dean into coming to the apartment he shared with Audrey. What happened inside that apartment became the subject of a murder trial. CCTV footage shows Dean walking into the building at 11:06 p.m. Just 7 minutes later, Mahon is seen leaving alone. In those 7 minutes, Dean Fitzpatrick was fatally stabbed. He managed to stumble out of the apartment building before collapsing, bleeding to death from a single deep wound to his gut. Mahon's story was that Dean had pulled the knife on him, that he'd wrestled it away, and that later when he pulled the knife back out to show Dean, his stepson had accidentally walked onto it. The prosecution called this version of events absurd, arguing that Mahon, drunk and furious, had deliberately plunged the knife into his stepson. In May 2016, a jury came back with a verdict. Dave Mahon was found not guilty of murder, but guilty of manslaughter. He was sentenced to 7 years in prison. The man who was supposed to be a father to Amy and Dean was now a convicted killer, responsible for the death of Audrey's only remaining child. But what happened next is what many people find to be the most baffling part of this whole tragedy. During Mahan's sentencing, Audrey didn't stand against the man who killed her son. She stood by him. She had married Dave Mahan while he was out on bail, awaiting trial. She sat in the court crying as he was sentenced. She supported him through the entire case and stood by him as he was sent to prison. It's a choice that has haunted this case ever since, raising an agonizing question: how could a mother stay with the man who took her son's life while her daughter was still missing, with that same man at the center of so much suspicion? It's a dark truth that seems to defy all logic, and it has led many to believe the answers to Amy's disappearance lie right there, within that family circle. With no body, no crime scene, and no confession, the disappearance of Amy Fitzpatrick is a case built entirely on theories. Over the years, dozens have been floated, but they all circle the same dark star, the family's own troubled world. The most prominent theory, the one that public opinion has clung to for years, is that Dave Mahan was responsible. This suspicion was there long before he killed Dean Fitzpatrick, but the manslaughter conviction cemented it in the minds of many. The logic is simple: if he was capable of that kind of violence against his stepson, what might he have been capable of with his stepdaughter? Proponents of this theory believe an argument broke out after Amy got home on New Year's night, and it escalated tragically. The conflicting stories about her mobile phone are seen by some as proof she made it back to the apartment that night. Mahan has always vehemently denied any involvement in Amy's disappearance and has publicly stated he wants to return to Spain to clear his name and push the investigation forward. A second theory involves a stranger or someone known to Amy but outside the family. The Costa del Sol in the mid-2000s had a reputation as the Costa del Crime, a playground for organized crime figures. Speculation has swirled around a few names, including the Irish gangland killer Eric Lucky Wilson, who was reportedly in the area at the time. Another unconfirmed sighting placed Amy in a local bar with an unknown blonde woman hours after she was last seen. Even Dave Mahan himself added to this narrative, claiming in late 2024 that he had asked the infamous Irish crime boss Gary the Monk Hutch for help in the early days of the search. But for all the talk of underworld connections, no hard evidence has ever linked a third party to Amy. The final and maybe saddest theory is that Amy simply ran away. We know she was incredibly unhappy and desperate to go back to Ireland, but could a 15-year-old girl with no money and no passport really orchestrate her own disappearance and stay hidden all these years? While her family clung to this as a glimmer of hope at first, they and the Spanish police now believe it's highly unlikely. A runaway almost always leaves a trail: a friend they confided in, a bank account they access, a sighting somewhere. Amy left nothing, she just vanished. As someone who knew the family back in Spain stated bluntly, there is not a chance in hell that Amy would have had the courage or the know-how to run away. This leaves only the most disturbing possibilities: that she met with a terrible accident that was covered up, or that she was murdered. The case of Amy Fitzpatrick is a puzzle where the most important pieces are missing, and they seem to be held by the very people at the center of the story. The questions are agonizing. What do you think really happened that New Year's night? Do you believe the answers lie within the family, or was this the random act of a stranger? Let me know your theories down in the comments. And if you believe cases like this deserve to be kept in the public eye, please like this video and subscribe for more deep dives. More than 17 years have passed. Dave Mahan served his sentence for killing Dean and has been released from prison. He and Audrey Fitzpatrick are still together. Officially, Amy Fitzpatrick's case is cold, just a dusty file in a Spanish police station. But the search for answers is kept alive by Amy's father and aunt in Ireland, who refuse to let her be forgotten. In 2023, the discovery of human remains in the hills near Mijas sparked a brief, desperate hope for closure, but forensic analysis confirmed they didn't belong to Amy. Today, Amy Fitzpatrick would be in her early 30s. What happened to that 15-year-old girl on that short walk home? Was she the victim of a stranger on a dark road? Or did she make it home only to meet a fate far worse at the hands of someone she was supposed to trust? The silence from those who were closest to her is deafening. Somewhere, Someone knows the truth about what happened to Amy Fitzpatrick, and until they speak, she remains vanished on the Costa del Sol, a ghost haunting a family with a dark, violent, and unforgivable secret.